us pray. Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do only those things that will promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Jude, happy Independence Day.
Same to you, my speaker. And regards to everybody. God bless all of you. You see?
So today is Inewi National Day, or which one? Because Nigeria has had its own about how many days ago? The celebration continues.
Yes, sir. And once more, I'm also trying to celebrate my leader, the speaker himself. Her birthday was just a few days ago. God bless you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
It's okay. Happy celebration to you. Let us go through the votes and proceedings of Thursday 15th of November 2018. Please approve. Ojú ìwé kẹrìnlélẹ́ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbẹ̀rin lẹ́ẹ̀gbẹ̀rin. Aṣòfin Mákindé.
Ẹ káàsán olùdarí. Mo rí orúkọ mi ní abẹ́ àwọn tí wọn ò wá. Mo dẹ̀ wà ní ìjókòó ní ọjọ́ Àlàmísì tó kọjá sà.
Ẹ bá wa ṣe àtúnṣe. Aṣòfin Mọ́súnmọ́.
Ẹ ṣé olùdarí. Èmi náà rí orúkọ mi ní abẹ́ àwọn tí kò wá. Mo dẹ̀ gbayè ní ọjọ́ Àlàmísì yẹn. Mo gbàyè lọ́wọ́ yín sà.
Ojú ìwé karùnlélẹ́ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbẹ̀rin. Ojú ìwé kẹrìndínlẹ́wàá lélẹ́ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbẹ̀rin. suspending the votes and proceedings of Thursday, 15 November 2018, and approval is granted. Any message from the governor?
Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable members, there is no message from the governor.
Any other announcements?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to announce the presence of the following schools at the gallery to observe the House proceedings. 30 students from High Flyer College, 4 Uluade Way, Ashamu Estate, Okeafa, Isolo, Lagos, led by Ms. Yewande Morgan, Mr. Kuntude, and Mr. Ajay Aro. 15 students from Graduate Institute of Mass Communication, Lagos campus, 3 Ekoro Road, opposite Tantalizer, Abule Egba, Lagos, led by Mr. Falala Jerry, and 29 students from Yaba College of Technology, Yaba, Department of Business Administration, led by Mr. Philip Moore, Speaker, and Mr. Babajide Abundance, Deputy Speaker. That's all, sir.
Petitions?
None, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Matter of other public importance? Honorable Abiu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Fellow members, good afternoon. The matter I bring before the House this afternoon has to do with our observations and that happenings in legislatures across the states. Of particular importance is the issue of Benue State House of Assembly, where it can be seen as some people interfering with the proceedings and happenings in the House of Assembly. And it is quite clear in the Constitution how the various arms of government are meant to interrelate. It is quite clear that there is independence of the legislature. And a situation whereby issues arise within the parliament and we see the involvement of security forces and the executive arm of government is quite worrisome. In the case of Benue State, we had a situation whereby the former speaker was impeached and the matter was taken to court. And then in the course of wanting to resolve this issue, there was what can be seen as interference on the part of the judiciary. There were quite some issues in court, but at the latest ruling, where the Chief Judge of Benue State, Justice Andover, Kakan, ruled in clear terms that the judicial arm of government has no constitutional powers to restrain the House of Assembly from performing legislative functions. We need to really emphasize this because as we speak today, now the other area of importance here of concern is the role Nigerian police actually plays each time there are such issues with the parliament. They are quick in shutting down the parliament, and it is meant, and it is quite clear too that Nigerian police too, their presence within the parliament is necessary, but it is to be made clear that their role there is to maintain peace and not interfere with the happenings within the parliament. We need to say this and to emphasize it, because as we speak here today, there are quite a number of issues similar to this in some other parliaments in Nigeria, and I think this issue we brought to bear for my colleagues to actually speak up on this, to say that the legislature is quite independent of itself and at no point should any judicial process impede with the happenings within the parliament. Thank you very much.
Maybe I should give others opportunity to say one or two things. Your point is not really clear to me. Are you coming from interference of the executive in the parliament, or you are eulogizing the pronouncement of the court, the the chief judge, or you can give him the mic if he doesn't have, or you put off your light.
On one hand, it is to make clear that the executive has no role in the issue of leadership in parliament, on one hand. And on the other hand, too, the police is usually also very quick to take sides, irrespective of what the law says as regards goings on within the parliament. Because what actually happened at that time was the parliament was shot by Nigerian police, which I don't think is really a purpose to do so. And I need for us to emphasize this. As we speak, the parliament in Anambra State is also under lock and keys. And it is important that we emphasize this for the Nigerian police to act within its, their limits when there are issues in the parliament. Issue of parliament should be allowed for parliamentarians to resolve amongst themselves. Thank you very much.
Honorable Olulade.
Can you please put off your light?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. And I must also commend the removal of these important subjects concerning the ruling from Benue State. I think it is important that we commend the judge that gave that judgment for coming up boldly to declare that it is wrong, it is illegal, and it's unconstitutional for any arm of government to impede the responsibilities of the other arm of government. In this particular issue, I think it is important for us to understand that the legislature, the legislative arm of government, is the number one arm of government in as far as the constitution is concerned, because where you go ahead to shut down the House of Assembly, you have shut down the people, and that means there is no more democracy in place. And as such, we have seen issues that arises from the police, the judge, where I think it is important that whenever there is any case that is going on within the legislative arm of government, they should allow us to conclude on that process. If there is any reason for the judicial arm of government to come in, it will be at the court when the matter have already left the House of Assembly. A situation where the judiciary is being used against the legislature, or the legislature is being used against the executive, I think that must stop, and the executive must know their role as well as the legislature. So for me, I want to thank the Honorable Chief Whip for coming up with this very important and condemn in totality any act of interference from any part of the arms of government, be it judiciary or the executive, in the interference of the responsibility of the houses of assembly across the state, across the country. Thank you.
Honorable Otimolo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me use this opportunity to thank the High Prime Mover. Mr. Speaker, the judgment, the ruling only amplified the independence and interdependence of the three arms of government. What I've seen in Anambra State and Benue State is what I call executive recklessness. Because we call executive recklessness because the police is an agency of the executive. If there are issues,
But at the federal level, not state level.
yes, at the federal level, but obviously you can see the recklessness of many state governors. Whenever there's an issue, they will say because they are the chief security officer, before you know it, they will send them there. So I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, as an arm of government, it is well known, it is in the constitution that you are the most important and number one. Because without the legislature, there is no democracy. That's number one. And we are not a military autocracy. We have some people who will be ruling us with laws. We are governed by the same law. And there is rule of law that everybody is subjected to, be it the police, be it the executive, be it the IG. Mr. Speaker, let me use this opportunity to thank the judge and to use this as well for this house to write the IG telling them about where their function starts and where it ends. There is to preserve life and property. It's not to wade into a third party affairs, because to us and them we are third party. Whatever happens to a legislature or judiciary, it is not for them to dabble in and judge. When you shut down, you close an arm of government, what you have done is ultra bias and it's treasonable. Because I've not seen since we started any democracy in Nigeria that I've not heard that the police has gone to the state house to shut it down. Which state house in Nigeria are police shut down? It's only House of Assembly, one too many. If you don't nip it in the bud, then it will now snowball to become a big problem. Honorable Abiru, thank you for bringing that to our consciousness. Thank you, that Benue State judge. And Mr. Speaker, let us write the IG to tell them to stop this, because if care is not taken, it will snowball and become a big issue. Thank you.
Well, I think there hasn't been any allegation against any governor of being responsible for the invasion, except you have any information to that respect. Well, we notice the presence of policemen in some of the houses of assembly. I agree with you on whose instruction they got there. That's we cannot establish. So I just want us to limit ourselves to what we are very sure of. Honorable Togo.
Well, thank you very much. I want to sincerely join my colleague to commend the judge for the landmark ruling, at least stating clearly that parliaments remain independent. Mr. Speaker, my distinguished colleagues, I believe sovereignty belongs to people. And the people have willingly surrendered their right, their sovereignty to the parliamentarians to go and represent them on the floor of the House. Imagine if Lagosians were to be in this chamber, it would become rowdy and unethical. So they are choosing some people to represent them. And those people given the privilege to represent them must be seen doing the job without any intimidation or coercion or harassment by anybody. But what we have observed is that parliamentarians, in most cases, they want to intimidate them. They want to coerce them to submission or to do the bidding. And I feel if police were in the compound, is to maintain peace and order and to ensure that security of the people and properties around this place were protected. When police start coming into chambers, it's an aberration anywhere, because the parliamentarians make the law that govern the states. The executive are only given the power to execute those laws being made by the parliamentarians. So if there were discrepancies, even in a family setting, there are some issues that need to be sorted out amicably. But where people are coming in through force, by use of force, to coerce them to do their bidding, is uncalled for. In this case, the judge has come out clear that under no circumstances will police or any other person interfere with the affairs of the local government. Mr. Speaker, you raise a very germane question, that how police come to the parliament. Well, we all know how police come to the parliament, to stay outside and maintain law and order. But when they start coming into the chamber, that is the work of the fifth columnist in our midst. And it must be stated clearly that under no circumstances, judiciary will never have the power to ask the police to go. But we know those who have the power of force. And you know what power of force has led us to in this country. Until we start addressing it and rejecting it in totality, it will continue. How many times has police go to executive, go to governor's house and say they want to lock it? It will never happen. Or go to any commissioner's office. It's only the parliament until we reject it in totality as an aberration. And Nigeria must be ready to rise up to it, because this house belongs to Lagosians and residents. And nobody, under any circumstances, should intimidate us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is it Lagos they are invading? Honorable Fafuri, your life was on, and if you are done, you're not bothered.
give me the privilege of speaking, I obviously will have something to add to what my colleague has said concerning this very germane issue. Now, quite frankly, most of the issue have been flogged by my colleagues here. What we are saying is that the simple message is the sanctity of the house needs to be protected and respected. Now, a situation where police will invade an arm of government, it's an aberration. It's a violation of the Constitution. It's a violation of the right of the people. It's a violation of so many things. Now, the Nigerian police, when you look at them generally, they see themselves, most of the time when they act, they don't always advert their minds to the fact that all of us are under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Even the executive. So anything, any instruction that's been given to you that is a violation of the Constitution, you ought not to carry out such orders. But here in Nigeria, you will never hear such, illegality being committed by the American police or the British police. It is only in Nigeria that if there is any infraction, if there is anything, an order will come, they will tell you it's an order and they must obey the order. I mean, are you saying there are no police officers in all those developed crimes? Are you saying such orders will be given by anyone? You can't tell me you can't give me an order to do something that I know the law does not permit me to do. So, invariably, I want to join my colleagues who have condemned this act, and I also want to join those who have celebrated the landmark judgment being given by the Benue State judge, because it's something that demonstrated one fact, that there is still hope in Nigerian judiciary. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Joshua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the privilege to contribute. I would just also like to commend the judge for speaking truth to power. It's very rarely that you see when someone believes that power is talking, they cannot speak truth to power. So let me commend the judge first and foremost. Also, let me commend the judiciary as a whole for this landmark judgment, because they say that the House of Assembly of Lagos State are known to not only condemn when somebody does something wrong, to also commend when somebody or an institution does something right. So that's what we're doing today, commending the judiciary. Yes, we know that the police, they don't have any right to just storm the House of Assembly of any state to say they are shutting down the business of the House of Assembly. Legislators are the voice of the people of Nigeria as a whole, and we must be careful, not just as the police, but as the executives as well, when we try to jump into other people's jurisdiction and do their work and take over their work and try to hold the whole of a state to ransom. Because when the police lock up or close a House of Assembly, you are telling the people of that state that they are irrelevant, their votes don't count, and they cannot say anything. But today we stand up to talk for them. And we hope that the people of Anambra State will also take a bold step to let the police know that not only is this judgment a judgment that should be celebrated, but it should not happen again, not only in Anambra State, but in the whole of Nigeria, not just houses of assembly, House of Representatives, Senate, and so on and so forth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Secretary.
Thank you very much, the Right Honorable Speaker. And my colleagues, I want to especially appreciate the prime mover of this motion. The fact is that democracy has been having problem in this country because each time the military comes, the first casualty is the legislative arm of government. And when there is no legislator, there is no democracy. So this judgment is a landmark one that I really commend personally, because this woman has been so bold to tell the world that the constitution of this country is very clear. The first arm of government that is regulated in the constitution is the legislative arm of government. After that, they will have the executive and the judiciary. But each time, because the legislative arm of government does not have the power of force in terms of, employing, I, I mean, what do you call it, or engaging the police personally. I mean, they don't have their own arm to enforce this. So they take advantage of that and rubbish the legislative arm of government. And I want to emphasize the fact that any state that rubbishes the legislative arm of government does not want democracy. Because we are here to represent the people. And just like my colleague said earlier, all the people of Lagos cannot come to the House of Assembly. So they selected a few, about 40 of Lagosians to come and represent them. So what is happening in other states, and even Nigeria as a nation. So our democracy, which is nascent, needs to be protected. We need to remind, especially the executive arm of government, that we are different. We are all working together at the same time. We also have different roles to play in the system. And with this, I want to suggest, if it is possible, to actually write this woman and commend her judgment, because this is a landmark judgment that will continue to linger for a long time. Thank you, sir.
Lastly,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me say a very big thank you to the mover of this discussion. And on that note, I want to say it is a very big aberration and a slap on the legislative arm of government. When we try as much as possible to actually look at section 6, paragraph B, with the kind permission of Mr. Speaker, I seek to read, sir. The judicial powers vested in accordance with the foregoing provision of this section, paragraph B, shall extend to all matters between person or between government or authority and to any person in Nigeria, and to all actions and proceeding relating thereto for the determination of any question as to the civil right and obligation of that person. That is to say that kudos to the arms of the judicial arms of government, who has actually come to the aid of the legislators. And again, a police coming into the chamber is a slap. And this is high time that the legislator should start looking inward into our constitution to see what we can do to correct that. They cannot come into the chamber. They can be outside the chamber. Coming into the chamber should be tantamount to criminal offense. Section 17, with the kind permission of Mr. Speaker. Section 17 reads, the state social order is founded on ideas of freedom, equality, and justice. By extension, where is the equality in governance? Where we're supposed to be independent? Whatever the legislative arm of government is doing should be independent of the executive. They should not interfere. Where they have to interfere, we will know. But in a situation where there is a little problem within the house and there is a takeover, that is an infringement on the fundamental human right of even the people as a legislator and the citizen of Benue, because they don't want them to be represented. On that note, sir, I say thank you very much, the prime mover, and long live the legislator.
Well, I want to thank you all for your contributions, and I also join you to commend the judge who made the pronouncements as being informed by the chief whip. I think it's a commendable one. Looking at what we have witnessed, what we have witnessed of recent, because if you consider the number of houses that have been shut down since beginning of 1999 up to this moment, I think only few houses are left out. And it's just an opportunity for all of us to remind, the police, the provision of the Constitution that no arm of government has power over the other arms of government, that they are all equal and they all have constitutional powers to perform their function without being, disturbed by the order. I think it's a commendable one, and I join you all to commend the pronouncement. The closure of the parliament is something that we follow is known that the police does not possess such powers. It is left to us to do what is right. Honorable Fafumi made reference to some other developed world. They've also passed through the process, but they were bold to rise. They have citizens who were bold enough to rise and challenge, such intervention. I can remember after the World War I, from what we read, some people who carry out certain orders from their generals or senior officers were prosecuted. They were prosecuted and sentenced based on the fact that they should be able to distinguish between order that is proper or the order that should not be carried out. So it simply means we also should be bold enough to rise to such situation where any house is being shut down by the police. We should have people from such states to sue such commissioner of police and challenge the authority, because totally we are practicing democracy where there is no existence of the parliament, and there is no democracy. That simply means there is state of emergency in such state. As we speak, I read that Anambra also has been raided or shut down by the police. The Ondo is not far from what is happening. So we need to call on Inspector General of Police to call to order all the commissioners of police in Nigeria, supervising the state in terms of security, to obey the provision of the Constitution. We are not saying they should not maintain order and peace in such parliament where there is crisis, but their limitation should be to protect life and property, not to the extent of closing or locking out those who are being given constitutional responsibility to make law and oversight the activities of the executive. We also need to call on ourselves, the parliamentarians, that they need to apply maturity and seriousness to what we are doing. I think it is not good enough where we continue to attack one another. We turn the parliament to battleground. Just in the name, we want to remove the speaker, we want to appoint the speaker, fine. Anybody can become the speaker among the elected members. That is why first among the equal. So no one is superior to other, but we should be able to carry it out in such manner as being stipulated in the rules of the House and the Constitution, and not to the extent we bring thugs from outside, we start attacking one another. That we need that political will to rise above this recklessness, and that is the only time we can also make efforts to put the police where they belong. I agree with you. We have witnessed so many, intervention from other arms of government in the process of appointing leadership in the parliament. But we also should show courage that we know what we want and we know how to go about it. But whatever that has happened in the parliament, it is not a ground or an invitation for the police to come into the parliament and shut down the parliament. So I quite agree with the prime mover, the need for us to commend the judge who made the pronouncements in the case of Benue State, and also to write the IG of police to call his men to order and to direct them just to maintain peace wherever there is political problems in any of the parliament, and not to lock up the place. So, Chief Whip, can you please make your prayers on?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That we write to commend the Chief Judge of Benue State for the landmark judgment. And also, as rightly put by Mr. Speaker, for us to also write to the Inspector General of Police with the fact that it is very important for the police to carry out their duties in line with Constitution of the Right Republic of Nigeria without any form of interference. They are there to
Sorry, I think the presidency should be included as well.
well to write to the president to direct the Inspector General of Police to alert police in various states that it should work within the ambient of Constitution and the law. Thank you very much, sir. I still move.
Honorable Olulade.
I rise to second the motion as properly moved.
All in favor say ayes. Those against no, the ayes have it. Before we move to the business of the day, we are seeing another personal explanations, reports. Yes, Honorable Akoli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the 17th Saturday, we went to represent Mr. Speaker, myself, Honorable Jude Idimogu, Honorable Noim Adams, Honorable Desmond Elliott, at Nawauddin Grammar School, Old Student Association Convention. We are one of our own. Honorable Sobol Olawale was made the national president. We represented the Mr. Speaker, and they sent their good tidings, but we brought back one experience. Instead of them celebrating in big hotels and event centers, they decided to go back to the school and celebrated with the children, where there is an opportunity for mentorship. And at the end of the day, sir, they send their good tidings to you, sir, and to all the 40 members for representing you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Reports. Before the business of the day, let me quickly recognize the 30 students from High Flyer College for Oluwadewe Ashamu Estate, Okiafa, Isolo, Lagos, led by Ms. Yewande Morgan, Mr. Akintunde, and Mr. Ajayi Aro. We also have 15 students from Graduate Institute of Mass Communication, Lagos campus, 3 Ekoro Road, opposite Tantalizer, Abulegba, Lagos, led by Mr. Falola Jerry. You are all welcome. We thank you for coming. I also have 29 students from Yaba College of Technology, Yaba Department of Business Administration, led by Mr. Philip Moore, Speaker, Mr. Babajide Abundance, Deputy Speaker. You are all welcome. We thank you for coming. Majority Leader.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, it's time for motion, House of Assembly motion number 62. The prime mover of which is Honorable Elliott D.O. of Surulere 1, and supported by Honorable Shokunle O.H., Honorable Yusuf A.A., Honorable Lulade O.G., Honorable Engineer Ishao G.O.R., Honorable Shinawa S.A., Honorable Bramoti, Honorable Idumogu J.E., Honorable Lowo R.E., on the need to curb the menace of drug abuse among youth in Lagos State. Mr. Speaker, with your kind approval, may I invite Honorable Idumogu to present this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry, Honorable Elliott D.O. Surulere 1 to present this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead, Honorable Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, honorable colleagues. The need to curb the menace of drug abuse among youth in Lagos State. This House notes that drugs are chemical substances that when used in the prescribed measure confers health benefits to the users. This house further notes that in recent times, youth have formed the habit of using drugs for purposes other than their prescribed use, such as for pleasure, to feel high or get high, perform better in certain situations, to change their perception of reality, or for the purpose and in manners that are not consistent with the prescribed community at large. This house is aware that the contemporary drug abuse transcends the use of conventional hard drugs like cocaine, heroin, cannabis, and Indian hemp consumption, but now includes seemingly harmless over-the-counter drugs such as cough syrups with codeine, rubber, gum, septic tank fumes, urine concentrates, Colorado, squishy, skunk, loud, and kerosene, gas, etc., which are mixed with soft drinks to conceal their contents. This house is further aware that youths now abuse a combination of these substances with two popular drugs, tramadol and codeine, which are commonly used for the treatment of cough and severe pain, and are easily purchased over the counter from drug stores and chemists without doctor's prescription. This house is concerned that those mostly involved in this practice are unqualified pharmacists, nurses, roadside hawkers selling to these young people who consequently commit sexual crimes and other acts of violence. The house is worried that this abuse has damning and adverse health effects, which include mental disorder, liver cirrhosis, and many social-economic consequences like school dropouts, cultism, armed robbery, and other related crimes in the state. This House resolves to call on His Excellency, Mr. Akinwumi Miambode, the Governor of Lagos State, to direct the commissioners, Ministries of Health, Information and Strategy, Youth and Social Development, and other relevant agencies to collaborate with entertainment social ambassadors, celebrities, other community ambassadors, and other prominent Lagosians, members of houses of assemblies and representatives, to embark on aggressive campaign towards curbing the menace of drug abuse and adverse effects, particularly on the youths and the society at large. This House resolves to call on the Chairman Task Force on Environment and Special Offenses Enforcement Unit to carry out strict enforcement against sale of drugs by roadside hawkers. This House calls on the Pharmaceutical Board to direct its members to restrain from selling drugs, particularly those that require prescription over the counter without prescription from qualified physicians, and call on their other authorities to wake up to its responsibilities and address issues relating to the sales, distribution, and circulation of the said drugs and other ones in the country. I so move.
Honorable Togo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against me, the ayes have it. Honorable Olulade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I think I must commend the prime mover of this motion for coming up with this particular motion at this critical time of our lifetime. Because considering the level of involvement of our youth, most especially the teenagers, from the age of 13 now, you see them doing all sort of drug abuse that could accumulate into several, and I must also use this opportunity to appreciate this House for the quick and prompt passage of the mental health law in Lagos State, because that will give us the opportunity of taking care of the would-be, because of the level, honestly speaking, because of the level of involvement of our youth, honestly speaking, is alarming. I've done a video on this, and I want to also commend the mover for coming up with this idea that every member of this house should go back to their respective constituency to go and do proper orientations and enlightenment program to ensure we stop this. Mr. Speaker, we have seen so many. You can imagine when somebody is taking fumes from certain tags to hide himself or for one reason or the other. We have seen several abuses of these drugs. People are just, and the level at which crime is being committed lately shows to us that there is so much that needs to be done in this area. And when we talk about the enforcement, and I also want to say that in this motion, we should call on His Excellency the Governor to pass that law, the mental health law, as quickly, to sign it, not to pass it, but to sign the law and ensure that its implementation takes place with immediate effect. Because apart from the health aspect of it, apart from the security aspect of it, men are now looking into areas of even opening more general hospitals or more hospitals to take care of the multitude that might come up from this level of drug abuse that we see in this country today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me also commend the movers of this very, very all-important motion. Mr. Speaker, so many people have died from drug abuse. When I was looking through this motion, there's some description of drugs that I've never heard before in my entire life. I don't know what Colorado, squishy, skunk, loud is alarming. Mr.
Where
Speaker,
your constituency is the center of activities, you are telling us that means you are not close to your.
Honestly,
you are not close to your constituents.
My constituents don't do these ones. Because
which
if they did, I would have heard about it by now.
Which one did they do?
The normal ones that people hear about. All these ones are they are very, very, do I say, nicely worded, if I can put it that way, and very misleading and deceitful, and they deceive those children to believe that they are good things that they can get away with. Mr. Speaker, a lot of us have teenage children, and a lot of us are very worried about what is going on in the world today. It's not something that we should take with levity, because it affects family members, friends, and so on and so forth. We talk about this codeine. I remember going to the doctor with a friend of mine, and they asked that they give her codeine for cough or something. The way the Nigerian people that came with her shouted no, you would think that codeine is poison. But it's actually supposed to help to make you feel better. Like the movers have said, that the drugs, when properly used as prescribed, they're supposed to help you to feel better and be healed. So, Mr. Speaker, let me just say that I support the movers. I feel that the chemists, there are too many chemists in Nigeria at the present time, licensed and unlicensed, and the government needs to look into those chemists so that they stop selling. I know that the manufacturers these few months, they have been clamping down on those that are selling those things with codeine. We know that NAFDAC is very concerned about things like that. And yes, I'm out of time. So let me just say that I support the motion and ask that we be more effective and proactive as a nation. Thank you.
Mr. Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, this is a very good motion. And apart from supporting the motion, there are some other ingredients to be included in the motion. Mr. Speaker, the parenting nowadays is eroding at an alarming rate, because now we are manufacturing children without making provision for how they are being brought up. That one has led to so many social menaces in the society. I think it should be included. No parent care about their world. And as a result of this, Mr. Speaker, we have so many black spots in Lagos State today. And if care is not taken, the freight movement that we are enjoying today in Lagos State may become things of the past. I know some black spots that even in the daytime, you dare not move near that very place. If you do not take this drug, inhaling this drug, I mean, moving through that very place, you can also be intoxicated because of the thick odor that will be emanating from that environment. Mr. Speaker, one thing again is that the broken home, drug abuse leads to so many broken homes. And I give you an example. A man went to a club, and after the clubbing, he picked a lady from the club, looking for an hotel, and directing the taxi cab to his own house, and asking his own wife, can they get a short-time room? And that led to the breaking of that very house. This is the effect of a very serious drug abuse. And somebody is up, so yeah, we have to be very careful. When you take drug, you become so high, you regard yourself as something important where you are not. You are living in isolation, mirage, social mirage, like somebody will say, I'm the leader of the East. So, Mr. Speaker, I think I support this very motion in entirety. Thank you.
Honorable Agubade.
Right, Honorable Speaker, while commending the mover of this motion and those that support the motion, I just want to say that we need to call our consciousness the fact that drug abuse by the youth is a very big threat to the future of this nation. Good brains are being damaged, and unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the youth that perpetrates these acts do not live in thin air. They do this within communities where we have CDAs, where we have old people watch them, the houses they use where they do this, people see them and they make no report. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, maybe those that put up these joints may, I don't know, have found their way to get law enforcement agents to look the other way. That is why you see the act being perpetrated with impunity these days. Mr. Speaker, I think we should have a way to bring about how these miscreants or those who use drugs illicitly get high will be used to take care of our society as a way of punishment. I am thinking of apprehending these people, prosecuting them, and giving them community service punishment. We have refuge everywhere. They can assist in doing this. We have some other things, block drainages. If we are afraid of taking them to remand homes because they are overpopulated, we should get them engaged on the street and the community for some other things. But it is something that calls for urgent concern, Mr. Speaker, because those whose children are even in good places and are not engaged stands the threat of these people who soon will become serious miscreants. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, these children, they are supposed to be future leaders, but these days you have them everywhere. Even within my constituency, they tell you this one is number one, this one is, I don't know, number one of what. You have them around, especially when you are doing anything or any campaign, they come to you. You see these young guys, their eyes are red. They 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 misbehave. They snatch bags early in the morning. They get involved in all sorts of crimes. I think we, as a representative of the people, we should go out there and counsel these boys or these children. They are our children. They are our youth, and we have to protect them. So I am very much in support of this motion, and we hope that we as representatives will urgently do something about it because our future is at stake. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Favre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the privilege. My colleagues, good afternoon. I want to say that this motion is very, very apt. It's coming at a point in Nigeria where the youths are becoming an endangered species. Now, when you look at everywhere, even the musicians are taking advantage of this by singing science students. We know all of them. The science students are all over. And when you see them, most of us did not even reflect on what that musician was talking about. Now, we are faced with a generation that if nothing is done to address the situation, we might be, at a later date, start regretting our inactions. Why am I saying this? Now, most of these drugs identified here, they are not the only drugs which people take in Nigeria. There is one that is left out, and this one is very, very important. I've had discussions with doctor friends and colleagues, and most of the time, what do we discuss? Why are we having such problems? There is a drug called Fortwin. Fortwin, I want you to include Fortwin in this motion if you are sending it out. Fortwin is just like an ordinary injection that when given, you start laughing, you feel on top of the world, you probably will feel so high that everything, appears to you as if there's nothing. And this drug is being sold over the counter. You get it everywhere. Our laws, are they out there to protect us or to allow us to get away with impunity? My critical question is, when does issue becomes issue? Now, when you look at what we are facing as a nation, this thing is an issue. It affects not only the youth, it affects both the youth and the old sometimes. Because you see some old who refuse to grow up. They end up behaving like the youth. So in this case, I want us to look at your resolution where you are saying that they should work with and embark on aggressive campaign towards curbing the menace of drug abuse and adverse. Very good. But we should not stop at, sensitizing the people or adverting their minds to the ills of taking drugs. What is very, very important is this is an issue and it needs a policy to be formulated on it so that we can have people, if you take tramadol, if you take Fortwin, if you sell Fortwin, if you are being caught doing this, you will have certain law that will deal decisively, and we can use such policies to regulate our environment, and more importantly, will be better for it. I think it's not something that is limited to Lagos State.
Thank you, Honorable.
In rounding up, it's not limited to Lagos State. Let us see how we can, bring in the federal agencies and federal bodies, because if you stop them in Lagos,
Honorable Favre.
they go to Ogun State and they bring
Honorable
this drugs in.
Shinobu.
Thank you.
Put off your lights, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How do one contribute to this all-important movement, other than thanking the prime mover and all others supporting other distinguished honorable members for bringing this to the fore, because this is what really is happening in our society as we speak. As we speak, I think we need to tell our youth that the use of this drug, no matter how high you become, you will eventually come down. You will officially come down to face the reality. You continue the usage, you become an addict, and the effect is all over. When our young guys take all of these drugs, the effect is courtesan, gangsterism, rape, street fights, breakdown of law and order, and so many other ills of the society. And all of this, if we must develop as a nation or as a state, we must try to curb all of this. And what we will advise is strong advocacy, like being mentioned by the prime mover. It will not be out of place, even if all distinguished honorable members set up small advocacy group within our constituency to try to address some of these issues. We cannot but join all of this. We need more drug rehabilitation centers because this thing has become an epidemic and it needs to be addressed. And also, we need to also increase our social work. The social workers in all other crimes, if you notice a pupil or student behaving abnormally, all you need to do is to call the social worker. They try to get the boy or girl and try to rehabilitate him or her. I think we need to increase all of this. We need strong boys and girls clubs. I don't mean the one they have in the road. In Lagos Island, we used to have Kemopo Boys and Girls Club. We used to have Alakoro Boys and Girls Club. We have Onola, every other, even Dumago, they do have them. What do they do? Sports. Some will engage in boxing, some will engage in dancing, some will engage in table tennis, and all of these engage the youth. Nowadays, all of those sports centers have been turned into one commercial center or the other. Too bad for us. We need to get all of these. And for me, I must thank the prime movers and the supporting honorable members to say thank you for bringing this to the fore. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to join my colleagues to add my voice to this very important motion. So, invariably, I embrace this motion with line and center. But I have a remark. Despite I embrace the submission of my honorable colleagues, that we have several advocacy centers talking about drugs. The Christians do have, the Muslims do have, and some other social organizations. But it's not addressing what we have on ground thoroughly. Like we have Christ ambassador for drug abuse and all that. I'm just citing that as one of the numerous organizations that talks about. There is something lacking. Honorable BC Yusuf mentioned one part of it, the parenting. The parents no longer parent. The duty of parents is to parent. The assignment of parents is parenting. We are lacking that. We also have lacking social values. That social values has also affected our communal life. We should develop interest, and we can also regenerate the idea of taking care of our neighbors. I.e., if something is happening to my neighbors, or I discover a strange attitude in any of my neighbors' children, I should demonstrate the courage to report or take the child off myself, or call the attention of the parents. So if we don't longer do all that, because there is no number of advocacy that we are going to put in this that is going to address what is on ground. The number of people that have been into drugs now, there are more than those of us who want. It's not limited to youth as well, Mr. Speaker. Maybe it should be amended. There are other adults who are taking it. So we should not pretend as if it's limited to our youth. Some of our elders too are also abusing. If you cannot correct elders, we should be able to save the young ones.
Yes, well, the elders should not die anyhow too, Mr. Speaker.
If an elder chooses to commit suicide, what will you do?
So, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
So the tradition
I
is
will
lacking.
take Honorable Shokunle last for just to hear, based on his chemical background.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And he's also representing Oshodi.
No, we don't do that in Oshodi, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, other colleagues. This is a very, very important motion, and the motion has even touched almost everything. But one thing we must try to do is this. First of all, we need to differentiate drugs into its classes. That is the OTC drugs and the ethical drugs. The one that can be purchased over the counter and the one that need doctor's prescription. One thing is this. We've tried to model up issues. the chemist and the pharmacist. The chemist shouldn't sell any ethical drugs. But in Nigeria, or sorry, in Lagos State today, we have a lot of chemists selling ethical drugs.
Jude
And
Brothers.
Sir?
Jude Brothers.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am not trying to condemn the chemist, but there should be limitation to the kind of drugs they should sell in their shops. And this should be the work of the Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria. They should look into this. They should license the real pharmacists, their member, who should sell the ethical drugs. If we can achieve this, I think sales of all these hard drugs will be reduced. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I thank you all for all you have said, and sincerely, I'm happy with the, level of response from you all, and almost every light was put on just to say one or two things. It shows that we are so passionate about our youth and children in Lagos State. It's unfortunate that we have found ourselves at this situation. The coding and so many other things, as rightly said, and even in the motion, well, some of them are meant to be used for care of some minor, health challenges. But unfortunately, the burdening with codeine, I got to know about it. I'm used to make use of it when I have called, and I sent my driver to get one for me. He came back, he said it's 1,002. I was furious, only, So I collected my money. I did not buy because I remembered that I was buying at rate of 200 or 300 around that range. Suddenly, it became 1,000 something. So I refused to buy, and I chose to, other solutions to my problems. Later, among the boys we were discussing, that was when I knew about the importance of Benylin with codeine and the reason for the sudden increase in price. So I had to apologize to the driver. Sorry, I never knew. It served up to all these, what is it called? But sincerely, I think Honorable B.C. Yusuf has been able to identify some of the things we need to do. Parenting is very essential, and most of us don't do it again. We don't even go to our children's school. We don't even talk to them, monitor what they do. All you do, where is your report sheet? Did you pass? Yes, I passed. That is the end of it. Even when you are invited in school, you don't even show up. Oh, I don't have time. I have to go to this. I have to go. Even the mother, the father has gone out, the mother has gone out. The children are left with the maid, and all sort of things, happen behind them, and they don't even know. And I think this is one of the factors responsible for these unfortunate situations. And we can't stop those who are, professionals or traders from embarking on their own daily activities to earn living. When we turn out the task force to start seizing items or closing shops, the effect, do we consider the effect on those whose source of life is purely by selling some of these drugs? So how do we handle it? What do we do? And I think the major thing is to call on the parents and the teachers. They have to improve on the way we relate and monitor our children. And the Honorable Jim also raised it that gone are the days when you can, caution or discipline the child of your neighbor. If you do that this time around, something else will happen. If you are not around, the other neighbors can pay attention and discipline any child they think he deserves or she deserves such discipline. But we don't do that again. Our civilization is taking a lot away from us. It's taking a lot away from us. Today, the mother will go to work, the father will go to work. You leave the child probably at school from 7 a.m. to late hours. So I think we just have to look for ways, and I agree with the prime mover. Most of the stars, our local stars, maybe Yoruba actors, Nollywood actors, musicians, are part of this problem, and they should be able to help us. We have to appeal to them to also take it up as a social responsibility. Thank God Desmond is one of them, and he's here with us. And it's also appealing that we should engage some of them. At least they should be able to do that as their own contributions to the society, where they'll go. Maybe, yeah, we have role to play, because I know we are like magnets to some of these boys. I'm sure whenever you are in your constituency or on a campaign trail, they know you are there, they will surely come around. So we all have roles to play. We should be able to do something, and it's by talking to them. When we engage some of the stars, they also go to school, appeal to them, let them understand that they have future beyond using some of these things. Because by the time you become addicted, that is the end of it. So I quite agree with the prayers of the prime mover, but I think we need to amend some of the items and include some. Closing shops might be difficult, and might also, bring hardship to some people whose daily life depends on selling some of the drugs. If they are licensed, fine. If they are not, well, we can find solution to that. And which other one? Yeah, I think calling on pharmaceutical board to direct its member is okay. Call on relevant authority to wake up to its responsibilities, address issues relating to sales distribution. Well, I think on the federal government part, there will be, impounding this product from the importers. I've read so much about it, but would that be a lasting solution? So, Honorable Desmond, I don't know, from what we've heard from our colleagues, maybe you can just amend your prayers and let's see what will take off.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just an additional, sir. I don't know if it will be out of place, sir. If the House of Assembly, this House of Assembly can maybe have like a committee that can go around to sensitize. I don't know if that can be included, sir. Well, would that be out of place, sir?
Mr. Speaker, information, sir.
Yeah, information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While you were talking about maybe they should not be able to close the shops, I think it is permitted by law. And while I was chairman of HED, we've gone out that the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, in conjunction with the task force, they have a task force even in Lagos State that goes round. It's just that they are not working as expected. That goes round to lock up chemists that are selling or doing anything that is contrary to whatsoever they are being licensed to do. Some of them do abortions. Some of them engage in other illegal means. So those task forces are there already in existence. So we can just, with the way it is couched, I think it's still okay. They can just come up and enforce what has been in existence. That's just what this under the law.
Okay. Honorable Desmond.
Thank you, sir. This House resolves to call on parents.
Yeah, you were saying something about the members of the House.
I saw a slight protest from some of the members. I could perceive it, Mr. Speaker. So
no, I think it's proper. It's not out of place, but it doesn't need to be a committee thing. At least each one of us can go to any school in his constituency and address the children while they are on the assembly or in the classroom. The school authority can put them together just to, it's just a kind of, what is it called, enlightenment campaign, awareness to let them understand the need why they have to stay away from drugs. And, including in the local stars will also help. At least they will be willing to listen, to hear from them, and that will I don't think it's out of place. We can do that. Each one of us can go back to our constituency just to choose some schools. You might not be able to do, or maybe few of them. You go there, you talk to the children. At least they see us as leaders today. So I'm sure some of them will be willing to listen and learn from us. You know, with hope that one day they will become what you are. So I think it's a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Layode, you want to say?
I'm trying to say, like Honorable Tejo showed, you can go to Mushin Garage and, you know.
I didn't say she should go to garage, Bushy Garage. I said schools. So why do you want her to go to Bushy Garage? Yes.
He has no respect to it. He's talking to a fourth-timer and he wants to become a fourth-timer. You should let me be praying for him. I shouldn't put a jinx on him.
Don't go to garage, you go to schools. That's what we are saying. So, huh? Yes.
Is garage exempted from what we are discussing? It's part of our society. There's
Those
no way
ones are no longer used. You allow professionals, counselors to handle that.
They can
You
go with the
go
honorable
professional
members.
counselors, not yourself. But to the schools, they are still young ones, so you can go and address them and talk to them. And when they see faces they have known before, you know, the people they watch on TV, on screen, you know, they'll be willing to listen. You know, that's persuasive efforts, you know, could really make them change their, what is it called? Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Speaker. You said something that is very germane, but in the course of reviewing his submission, it was left out that in schools, because we're doing primary school and secondary school, maybe topics like drug and abuse of drugs should be in their curriculum, should be included, so that they will be able to know if they abuse drugs, this is the implication. So from school, they will treat it as well. You said it, but you said it unconsciously.
I think it's okay. Honorable Joshua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that in biology and the sciences, they normally, for the IGCSEs or the YX, they normally deal on a topic on drugs. They know about recreational drugs and medicinal drugs and drug abuse.
So now or then?
Yes, sir. Right now as
Okay.
as we speak. So if we're going to, you know, talk about drugs and whatever, I don't think we'll need a special topic unless what you have said that the members should go to the schools to enlighten the children. When they see an honorable member, take time out to come to their school to talk to them, like Mr. Speaker has rightly pointed out. It goes a long way. It's very effective. And those children are very impressionable, and I think that is something that we should all take very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Desmond.
As amended by members and the right honorable speaker, sir.
Well, I think it has been collectively amended. Well, from all that have been said, based on this, just to have the role to be played by members and inclusion of the, how do you call them, the movie stars and musicians, celebrities, yeah, to catch it where celebrities, both actors and musicians all together to be part of the exercise. Honorable Fafumi, you all like?
Yeah, it's a motion which
Yeah.
needs to be seconded. So I rise to second the motion as moved by the prime mover.
All in favor say aye. Those against no, the ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, we have coming next on the other paper House of Assembly Bill number 54. It is a bill generated from the House of Assembly and supported by Honorable Abiru L, Honorable Odunto Oyeledun, Honorable Ogudimu, Honorable Oshun, Honorable Akonde, Honorable Yusuf. Mr. Speaker, the bill is about Public-Private Partnership Amendment Bill 2018. With your kind permission, may I move that the said bill be read for the second time? I so move.
Honorable Naim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second the motion as moved.
All in favor say ayes. To those against nay, the ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable members, it is my honor to read for the second time a bill for a law to amend the Lagos State Public-Private Partnership Law, Chapter P18, Volume 9, Laws of Lagos State, 2015, and for connected purposes. Thank you.
Who goes first? Honorable Shah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. Well, as we know, the PPP law was to expand the purse of government to increasing infrastructure provision for the states and also to ensure rapid improvement of a society. In doing this, the state goes into partnership with the public, with the private sector to bring in more funds, and that also brings in this law since 2007, and sincerely it has improved the infrastructural development in our state. However, we can see that there's some hiccups, let me just put it that way, within this law, and that is why this law is being proposed for amendment. One of the main hiccup there is the fact that all the time the law requires the assembly to approve and approve and approve, and the executive and the business world have always complained that this makes it cumbersome. The process of going into PPP arrangement becomes highly cumbersome. So in looking at this law, we hope that we would have a situation where the approval of the assembly will be less in the format it is. However, this House of Assembly is a custodian of the assets of the state, and I believe strongly that our hands should still be part of this, any PPP that is happening in the state. Whether it's at this tail end as it is currently, which can be cumbersome, or better still at the beginning. For instance, you can have a section of the law, any item that our state is going to pledge as PPP for irrespective whoever is going to be involved in it, must be brought to this assembly, and this assembly would have approved it to be pledged for PPP. For instance, we are having a fourth mainland bridge towards Lekki, and we have land of 9,000 hectares of land. You can imagine how much land that is. We have various land assets that's been pledged here and there. So we still have to approve as the approving house of this, approving arm of this government. So I suggest that we have a portion in the law that will require that these approvals are front-loaded and gotten before the executive goes out sourcing partners for those PPP. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my colleagues.
Right, Honorable Speaker, leveraging on the introduction into the bill made by Honorable Yishao, Mr. Speaker, I wish to remind us all that this is one of the bills that emanated from the Pali that the House of Assembly had 2 weeks away, looking at some of our laws and seeing how to enhance them for effective implementation of the subject matter of the law. Mr. Speaker, at the Pali, our consultants were invited, they came, and they made very useful suggestions. Looking through the bill, Mr. Speaker, you will see that some of the suggestions at the Pali had been inculcated into the bill, and those are the areas in the bill where we have highlighted, Mr. Speaker, like all the highlighted portions and inclusion is to ensure that the PPP law engender a procedure that will be in consonance with best global practices as far as issue of public-private partnership is concerned, looking at some other jurisdictions where this has been done effectively. We will see, Mr. Speaker, that in the bill, the function of the Office of PPP has been enhanced. And in it, Mr. Speaker, it makes it also in another section to ensure that whoever will deal with the state, either its ministry or department, any juristic person that will deal with the state in PPP must be such that is registered accordingly with CAMA. Mr. Speaker, a lot of suggestions and improvement has been made in this, including the secretary to the board, who will make that responsibility and what are the qualifications. Mr. Speaker, having said all of this, I will suggest, Mr. Speaker, that we are all part of the procedure for amendment. We are all there. And having had this, maybe I want to suggest, Mr. Speaker, that the bill is committed to appropriate committee of the House for other legislative surgery that will be done to it to bring it into reality and law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just like what my colleagues have said, PPP law will enhance development because world over today, we appreciate that what is appealed to government is not meeting their desired requirements in terms of health, bridges, infrastructure. But this house is so positive-minded and sensitive of what transpired prior to the amendment of this law. And again, we are alive to the fear of foreign investors. We had the intervention of the House might really delay, stop their ambition to be part of the development. But Section 31 has laid put to all these fear, where whatever the concession agreement they had with the would-be an investor, joint partner, BOT, it must come to this house for ratification. So, Mr. Speaker, and with what Honorable Agunbiade said, we had 3 days where this law was part of the law we actually looked into, and a lot of insight. Even consultants came in. So with that, and with what I've seen so far, my colleague, I would just want to pray your concurrence that we should allow this law to pass to the next stage of committee. Thank you.
Honorable Abu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Also joining my colleagues to make a few comments on the proposed amendments to this bill. This is a bill, well, it's a law that has been in existence in Lagos State that we have practiced over time. But of course, it has given rise to some concerns, particularly in terms of the oversight of the House of Assembly, because what we find out is that most of these concession agreements that is entered into, and from what we know, PPP is a means of financing public infrastructure and comes in different ways. But again, it is what the bill seems to intend to achieve is to have a law that will be in tandem with international best practices. Because part of what the challenge here is that the investors need their money in absences. If you find a vigilance in any crime, they may not necessarily. But Mr. Speaker, I think it's very important for us here as has affected us because the procurement process in PPP arrangements are quite cumbersome. They are highly technical, and the office that we have, that we need to enhance the capacity of the office. The laws were actually prescribed for the creation of the board, and part of what we have noticed here in Lagos is that the board was never created, and the office that we have oversighting all these projects is a small office, so there is a need to enhance the capacity of the office. There is also a need to empower the office to make regulations, and we might now call for ratification of such regulations, before it is implemented. In all of this, I also think it is important that we commit this bill to the next committee of the House. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I would also join my colleague in saying that having gone for about 3-4 days and seeing insight into all of these law and suggestions made and agreed to, that this bill goes to the next stage. However, I must just remind us that this is the stage that we can cure this issue of MOU and agreement. At what point does this the agreement or whatever comes to the assembly? Is it at the MOU stage when they are entering into, so that we know at the initial? It shouldn't be a quick accomplished when they have already done and everything done and dusted. I just have to sign off on it. They should at this point decide what they want to do and when it will come to the house. And then, if I must, from whatever committee that we did the other time, I guess the house need to know from the MOU stage, it should be put, the issue must be brought to us so that we know what they were trying to do before every other thing is completed. Because PPP is so important in addressing the infrastructural deficit. If we must catalyze the process of development in the state. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Well, without wasting time, as rightly said by Honorable Abiru, these are the existing law. The essence of looking into it for amendments is just to improve the quality of that office or agency to meet up with the modern development so that it can face the challenges ahead easily. And the compositions of the board, you see that it's all about professionals, but being tilted towards financial professionals only, while leaving others outside. You talk about quantities of your work, you talk about infrastructural development, you see the people who will advise accordingly. And when the MOU is being signed and the contract at the end of the day, you cannot, step out of it again. So we need to prepare ourselves so that we can do what is right from the inception up to the end of the exercise. Of recent, we embarked on the Fort Mainland Bridge. At the end of the day, some of the parties pulled out, and it's like it has not been working here in Nigeria. The PPP embarked upon. We look at the case of the airport, Wali Babalake, and I don't know if it's fan, it does not work. If you look at Lagos Ibadan Express Road, the same thing. So it seems to be a new thing to us in this part of the world. But we should be able to do something that will keep us in that position, whereby when we start, we'll be able to see it to the end. And it's an opportunity for any government, to improve infrastructure, both at the state level or federal, is to create opportunity for the revenue that is lacking, so that many things can be done without much being expended, even though we will pay, but it's going to be a process or avenue to levy taxes without putting hands in the treasury of the state. I think it's a good one, and I want to ask the committee that will embark on the public hearing to speed up action on this and go beyond our confines to see how it is being done in other climes, so that how that will assist the outcome of what we arrive at the end of the day. So I hereby commit the what is it called, the bill to House Committee on Finance to report back in 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we have next House of Assembly Bill number 59, Public Procurement Agency Amendment Bill 2018. Also, one of the bills generated from the Pali as directed and put together by the leadership of the House on the authority of the Right Honorable Speaker. We have supporting this bill, Mr. Speaker, and colleagues, Ogundimu O. Honorable, Honorable Mrs. Shogodara M.R., Honorable Oluwa O.F., Honorable Adams N.B., Honorable Kazim R.A., Honorable Muhammad F.J., Honorable Kasumu A.R., Honorable Sholaja Saka Nuruddin. Mr. Speaker, may I humbly move that this bill, Public Procurement Agency Amendment Bill 2018, be read for the second time as well.
Honorable Victor Kondi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I write a second motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Mr. Clark.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable members, with your kind permission, I wish to read for the second time a bill for a law to amend Lagos State Public Procurement Agency Law, Chapter L56, Volume 6, Laws of Lagos State, and for connected purposes.
Honorable Goodibu.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Well, I'm going to quickly speak to this amendment that is being called for on this Lagos State Public Procurement Agency law. Well, it's not too different from the PPP arrangement because we've had the necessary sitting on this sort of seminar where we've been able to engage on various things. But I'm just going to mention some very important ones so that we can really look at what we are talking about. Since it's also a specialized area agency and it has been operated for a while, and we have seen some areas that need some immediate attention. So the head of the agency, which is referred to as GM, the process, we agree in the course of the period that it should be made to be competitive, not that just be limited to in-house arrangements. Also, we discovered that in another section of that law, the tenure of the principal officers were not really determined in the law. It was not mentioned. So that also we should look into and worked on so that they have a stated tenure where they are going to be in office. Also, we also look at the aspect of the advance payments. So that has been the deal of this amendment, because in the law that we are going to review, it's also been talking about 20% of advance payment paid to the contractor, and we have discovered that this has affected the progress of work on the with the contractors, because the 20% is being seen as being too small, and that has led to a lot of abandoned projects. So we're looking at this aspect that, going into the review, into this section, we also enhance the performance of this law and some other areas that we have really talked about in the course of the tender board that is talking about the lowest bidder. The lowest bidder also not to be the only thing they have to consider, but the standard being expected by the contractors also be considered, and various other areas. But looking at the whole thing in the law as a whole and the amendment, I think the lot of work has been done by the consultants and our colleagues in the session that we had, and I think taking all those things into consideration will help us to come up with a very final and good one. Thank you.
Honorable Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like Honorable Ogundimu has said, it's one of those bills that we consider very extensively in the seminar. I think it will be proper for us to commit it to a committee. But I want to remind the House that on the composition of the board, the Commissioner for Finance, the Commissioner for Budget should be removed for the independence of the agency. Look, the agents have to aid the transparency in procurement process. That's just my overall observation. I think.
Mr. Toji, lastly.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving me the opportunity to talk on this. We've realized over the years that we have not been able to execute or implement the law basically because there is confusion there. That was why before this law, we had State Tenders Board that was quite functional. Now this procurement law have not been able, our system have not adopted it. And that is why we are actually changing, trying to amend the law. So I want to urge the House or the committee that we eventually, put it further, to look at the way to ensure that this law can be implemented. Because our procurement system is deliberately sidelining this law. With what we are seeing, to the extent that most of our purchases in the state do not go according to this law. And what are the challenges we had that made it impossible or not attractive for us to implement the law? We have to look at those things so that we will not go back to square one by having the amendment. At the end of the day, the executive arm does not go by the amendment we have implemented. Once again, I want to commend the fact that the Right Honourable Speaker considered it fit to, amend this law because it is very key for procurement purposes in Lagos State.
Well, thank you. The essence of this bill is to banish corruption and encourage transparency and probity in the process of awarding contracts. And the genesis of the bill, I think, is a foreign one. It was being introduced by World Bank then, and we embrace it in totality without considering our own system of factors here. I think starting from the composition, where you, as observed by Honorable BC, where you have the Commissioner for Finance, you have the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, yes, you have the chairman of the agency. It will be difficult for any other person to say anything contrary to both of commissioners, and need for us to look at the composition and also those who will be useful, just as we observe in PPP law. This in the board are not there. You talk about bidding, both technical and what is it called, the fund. Somebody has to be there that has the experience. You talk about quantities of your, you talk about architect, architect, you talk about others. They have to be part of the board so that they can, raise observations where necessary. So we need to look at the board. And there is one also section that says bidding process should be written in English. Well, here in Lagos, we also have respect for our mother tongue, so it should be addressed as well. It cannot be done. The part of the reason for this bill is to encourage both local inspector contractors and foreign to participate. So if you are saying such things to be done in a foreign language, it's another avenue to lock out some people that are supposed to be beneficiary of the due process. So I want the committee to look at that, where language is also an issue. And the percentage, as we observe, I think we still retain, 30%. We've talked about 40%. It should be increased to 40% as the first payment to the contractors or suppliers. That will give opportunity to them to work, quickly on such project than give it 20%. And we also realize the fact that to access funds, the process is somehow cumbersome in accessing funds by the contractor. Although there's a provision that says if after six months which payment has not been made, then it attracts interest rate for the contractor, but that is not enough. But to get enough funds to kickstart the project and see to the end of the project is what we desire, not about attracting interest. So we believe that first payment should be made 40%. That will give room to contractors to speed up activities on such projects. An issue of insurance also came in. The most times when the contractor is being given an assignment, he presents a bond. At the end of the day, the bond does not serve any purpose. We have seen situations where the contractors abandoned the project and did not turn up again. And the bond, the insurance company that guarantees the bond is not even responsible. I think these are areas that we need to address and work on. If we have to engage these people and discuss, because essence of having bonds from the beginning is just to ensure that the contractor did not disappear with our money, and the quality of the job is also something that it has to attract. It's not about awarding contract alone. How durable is such project? A situation whereby a road is being given to a contractor, after 1 year, 2 years, the road has diminished. What you have left is just potholes all over the project. So I think we have to address this so that anybody that is being given assignment, we ensure that it performs such tasks to the best interest of the people, as that we can save, revenue of being paid by the people from wastage. I think it's a good bill, and in view of this, the bill is hereby submitted to House Committee on Finance to also report back in 3 weeks. I hope you have enough time to perform all these tasks, or maybe we should just give another committee to take charge. So while you deal with the other one, you work together. We should not give to them. Okay, no problem. Work together. That is a national union. Work together. Majority leader, which one is the other one?
Mr. Speaker, we have moved to the last item on the order paper today, and that is in respect of House of Assembly Bill number 60, Lagos State House of Assembly Service Commission Amendment Bill 2018, supported by Honorable Jimo OW, Honorable Abu, Honorable Agunta, Ojelebo, Honorable Miranda, Honorable Miranda, Honorable Fafumi OTS, Honorable Majid AF, Honorable Famasiwa AO, Honorable Adams ND. Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, may I move that the Lagos State House of Assembly Service Commission Amendment Bill 2018 be read for the second time at home.
Honorable Salagua. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion of you.
All in favor, say aye. Those against me, the ayes have it. Mr. Clark.
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished honorable member, it is my honor to read for the second time the bill for a law to amend the Lagos State House of Assembly Service Commission Law, Chapter L 34, Volume 5, Laws of Lagos State 2015. Thank you.
I will go first. Majority leader.
Right, Honorable Speaker. In talking to this bill, I wish to raise the fact that this is a bill that is coming upon a bill already amending the extant law, which was forwarded to the governor but yet absented. So this gives us opportunity to look inward into the bill once again and make further amendments to follow the legislative process that was being passed the law. And this is also one of the bills that was attended to at the parley of the Lagos State House of Assembly 2 weeks ago. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, what we are seeing done to this bill, Mr. Speaker, is looking at the controversial or so unclear areas of the law with respect to the office of the clerk, the secretary to the commission, with also in respect of tenure, and as well as further highlighting and creating offices and departments that will enhance the capacity of the House to function as an institution with autonomy for its finances. Therefore, in section, Mr. Speaker, in section 3, we have the office of the chairman, the office of the chairman and members of the commission being granted another year or 5 years starting after expiration of the first year. But that this will also be subject to the consideration of the House of Assembly. We have also, Mr. Speaker, moving down, we have that we envisage a situation where the tenure of the secretary may expire by virtue of service rules, and nobody to quickly occupy that, and that's why we have created a subsection 4, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, of section 8, where we now have that in the event of vacancy in the position of the secretary, an acting secretary of the commission shall be appointed to act in capacity pending appointment of the substantive secretary. Mr. Speaker, also, the office of the clerk is also granted an enhancement of additional 4 years after the 21st 4 year, but subject to retirement policy of the civil service. And Mr. Speaker, in section 13, the offices created in the department created in the House of Assembly is further enhanced, Mr. Speaker, by suggesting inclusion of the Sergeant of Armed Directorate, which will take care of exclusively of the security affairs of the House of Assembly beyond the precincts of the chambers. And this is to further enhance that and guarantee security to members of the House. While we agree, Mr. Speaker, that this will not be exhaustive, Mr. Speaker, we hope that when this bill is submitted, we will have, I will call stakeholders meeting. If there is to be further enhancement or suggestion, that will be taken at that point. And at the end of the day, we can have a very robust House of Assembly service rules that will be fitful and meet with the challenges of the new regime of autonomy granted to state legislatures throughout the state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to say this bill is progressive, is proactive, and is more of capacity building. The reason for this is when you look at section 8, we tend to expand the units and the departments of the House in such a manner that throughout to now, director will become deputy clerk. And whatever is due to even the PAM set, it will be applicable to him. Mr. Speaker, you have about deputy clerk, legislative, and legal. You talk about publication and administration and the likes. It shows that in the spirit of autonomy you are talking about, this bill is proactive, it's progressive, it enhances department and units. Then more importantly again, Speaker, section 13 mentioned by Honorable Aguade is very salient and very important, and I appreciate it. Where you have sergeant at arms directorate, That means in terms of security of lives and property, issues of the borders about our own life, our future, even the workers, it enhanced. Mr. Speaker, we don't need to say much about this than to crave the indulgence of my colleagues to let us speed the giving of this bill to the relevant committee to deal with it. Thank you.
Well, you've said it all. It's our own bill, and it's a bill that we intend to amend in view of the autonomy being granted to all houses of assembly to accommodate other challenges that has been facing the parliament. And it's also a privileged one for the career officers to, create privilege of expanding their careers to meet with those who are in the mainstream of the civil service. I think it's a good one. And also to meet up with the new status being granted by the constitutional amendments, the process with which we need to seek the executive approval before appointing some of the membership of the board is an opportunity for us to also address that so that we can take it up on our own without, going back to seek for approval elsewhere. And it's also a privilege for us to grant the commission autonomy where they could, address their own financial expenditure without getting approval elsewhere. And I think the process of appointing secretary to the commission and the appointment of the class serves an opportunity for us to look at them and see the way we can couch it in such manner that will be convenient and acceptable. It is a good one, and I think we need to do the needful before the presentation of the next budget, because whatever we do will reflect in the budget of the House and the Commission. In view of this, the bill is hereby committed to House Committee on Establishments to report back in 2 weeks. Thank you all. Finance again? No problem. Finance, are you ready for it? Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, we have come to the end of today's proceeding, and may I